All right, so welcome to another Brewster podcast. This time with me I have Kyle Stevers, the GM of the Huntsville Phantoms, and I'm Ted Schmidt, GM of California Crusaders. Welcome, and thanks for doing this, Kyle.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back. You were one of the kind of founders of the wave of podcasts with Adam D back in the day, and I don't know where Adam is. Is he in the Gooba or anywhere, or is he just lost into the ether of the internet?
Yeah, he's over in the Gooba. I actually just joined back up with him over there. I think we're the only two ex-MBBAers at the moment, but there's a bunch of other lurkers that used to be with there too. Oh, Clichés over there as well.
Okay. This has been a kind of the podcast has been a really fun thing to add in the league, so you guys getting this started what seems like forever ago now is kind of a big help.
I can't take a ton of credit. I mean, Adam did a lot with those. He really made them pretty professional.
Yeah,
and it was all his idea and everything. So I was just kind of latched on.
Never that good. Like, I don't have intro music or outro music or fancy editing. Like, Ron started to do that, and now I guess we're on the Brewster Broadcasting Network now, which is kind of nice. I feel like I got picked up by some sort of legitimate network, but I am not. Like, unless everybody wants to listen to, like, late 80s and early 90s punk rock, there will be no music in my podcasts. So.
Yeah, that's fine, man. Just make sure you do the Blue Apron copy with a little...
You want to take the lead on this one, or you want me to do it? Or?
Yeah, that's fine, man. Montreal won 87 games last year, 92 the year before. Clearly, they're a good team. Playoff team, so entering the free agency, you might not expect that they had a ton of needs, and they managed to pick up at least one pretty good player in Dempsey. You might question a little bit the contract he got relative to some of his development of late, but you can't deny that he's a good bat. He's posted a career 844 OPS. Last year was kind of a down year, but some of that might have been, BABIP and luck related. But so he's getting 3 years at $11 million per, and then 2 team options at the end. So contract wise for his offense, I think that's a fine contract. It's not going to break your back, I don't think. He's only 32, I think. My main concern is his range is a 3 now. So I don't know if you're really expecting him to be a third base or if you're looking to move him to first. Just a cursory look, it kind of looks like Montreal has a first base and a DH already. So maybe... Do they?
Yeah, they've got Gary Schneider, so that's like... he's not a very good third baseman, so maybe that's their plan, is to just move him or move on from him.
Yeah. It's always weird with those third basemen who still have a really good arm and OTP tells you they're a good third baseman. I think he has a 7 rating there. I just don't know. I don't believe that 7 rating. A 3 rating is just horrendous. So
I tend to be with you on that. And I'm more happy with the guys like Dempsey who have tremendous error ratings to go with their arm. I think they might last a little bit longer, but you really wonder about how many balls are just getting through that side of the infield that he just doesn't get to. On the counter part of that I think that you tend to ignore that I wonder about is you're not one of those guys that cares about the arm strength quite as much as I do. I feel and some of that stuff on that side of the infield. I don't know that. I wish I had a better way to measure, because you're going to play Brian Sullivan at short, and I don't know how to measure how many runners he doesn't throw out with his 5-arm.
I don't know if you really get that kind of stuff in the metadata too much. Maybe you could parse it from where he got a ball, hit to the quadrant or whatever. But yeah, that's a good question.
It could be just fine. It could be he's absolutely fine over there, and the game says he's a 10 rated shortstop or something. So I wonder. I always wonder about little things like that, and I'm frankly too lazy to figure it out. So I will just continue to wonder.
Yeah, to be fair though, the 5-arm makes me uncomfortable a little bit too. But how many legitimately decent offensive shortstops have 10 range in the league?
No, exactly. There's not that many, and I wish I could have found more. I hated letting him go, but I just couldn't find the playing time for him. So he'll do fine for you. Do you think anything of the other guys Montreal picked up, Jake Blues or Jorge Martinez?
Yeah, well, Martinez wasn't on my radar. I kind of cut off my research at a certain like average annual value.
Sure.
Blues is an interesting guy. I actually looked at him for myself because he's left-handed, so of course I looked at him. He's they ended up getting him for 3 years at $4.5 million average, which is barely anything, right? So that's fine. His career is 697 OPS. Last year he put up a 698, but with an OBP at only 283, which isn't super exciting, right? I look at his career, and he's been in the league 7 seasons now. He's only broken one WAR twice in 30 and 33. So came close last year with 0.9, but didn't quite get over the hump. I think if he's going into your season as your left-hand platoon option, maybe you're fine with that. At least he's a fine return on investment of that contract. But he's not, don't get excited about him.
No, I agree with you on that. And I think that contract looks a lot better if Jake Blues would play like a 7-7-6 player that's left-handed. He just hasn't, and if you get the guy with the 283 on base percentage from last year, and that's even if you look at his splits, like he was 285 against right-handers, so it's not like he's been, this amazing player that is just getting hurt by his platoon stats. He's not hitting the side he's supposed to in some years,
right.
So he's kind of a question mark there for me. I only brought up Jorge Martinez because I'm kind of surprised he's still in the league. It felt like it was a decade ago that Vancouver gave him, or no, it was Des Moines, then traded him. Des Moines gave him like this huge contract that we all were like, what? Wait, you're giving like $15 million a year or something like that, and that lasted forever. And now he's on multiple free agent deals after that. Anyway, I don't know. I thought I was confused by Montreal's free agency. I thought that they've got good, like you said, the value on Blues looks like it could be okay. The value on Dempsey could be okay, but I don't know why they signed either one of them.
Yeah,
the players they have on their roster. So
yeah, no, that's definitely a good way of looking at it. I mean, the chronic trade flipper in me thinks maybe that's a precursor to picking up some prospects from the incumbents in a trade.
Yeah, and it very well could be. Like John's never been afraid to make a big deal either. He does a pretty good job with it, and it's one of the reasons Montreal's consistently good. Let's go to the next team. I think we spent enough time there. The next team's really quick. It's Rockville. Rockville, I can't remember exactly how many games they won last year, but it was quite a few, and they made the playoffs. They're kind of coming out of their rebuild phase really strongly, and I didn't see any needs on this team at all, which is good because they didn't sign any players. But it's a solid team, and just leave it at that. I kind of like this. A lot of times I'd say, you've got to find, there should be something you can do, whether it's like finding a right-handed platoon option for your weak, your lefty that can't hit something, or finding a loogie, or getting something. But in their case, I really think they probably are better off just pocketing the money because their team's solid. Brooklyn next. Brooklyn has kind of been one of those trying to add pieces to win team, and it hasn't worked out for a little while. And it looks like they did a little bit more of the same this year. What do you think about that Cicero Guerrero deal?
Yeah, he's not a guy that would be on my radar necessarily, but you can't argue with his production. I mean, career 884 OPS, and the last 3 years he's flirted with 900 all 3 years. Was over was over 3 and 2 years ago, and then just under this past year. It's a pretty heavy deal for a DH. 4 years at $15 million per, with a 22.5 team option at the end, which will occur when he's like, what, 36, so probably won't take him up on that one.
But even the 18 million at 34 and the 20 million at 39 could be a little scary, right? Like they're, for a right-handed first baseman, like you just kind of wonder if that contact drops down to 8 and the power goes to 7, like I don't know. I think it's a decent, solid deal for the first few years, but after that, it's a little frightening.
Yeah, which makes you wonder. They won 68 games last year and 75 the year before. So, does he put them into the 80-plus range and wild card contention on his own?
Right.
And
that's
so
where
if he doesn't do that for the next 2 years, then you're into the contract years where you're worried that you just mentioned.
Right. And if he's just going to be bad during those years, like if that's the plan that like, okay, this is my last win now, and I'm just going to stink in a few years. It's not the worst plan. It's actually not a bad plan at all if you don't mind prolonged rebuilding. But we're not even prolonged, but if you don't mind total rebuilds. But it does make him have to move Chris Workman back to second base, which is a little frightening with his 5 range.
I always love Chris Workman.
I like Chris Workman. He was great for me. I never should have gotten rid of him. I got him from Las Vegas after. Did you trade him to Vegas? Or no, you traded him to Jacksonville. Jacksonville traded to Vegas, and I got him from Vegas. And I like Workman a lot. And I was dumb to let him go. And I let him go, and I signed your other player, Fernando Moreno, who's been hot garbage for me. So I never should have done that.
Yeah, but you changed your stadium, so
hopefully something
here now
helps this year. Yeah, I hope he bounces back. Was anybody else on Brooklyn that stuck out for you?
Well, John Chandler looked like the other big piece they picked up. 2 years and I think about $6 million average. He had a pretty rough year last year with a 4.91 FIP, and he posted a 3.9 the year before. So obviously that's what you're hoping he gets back to. But even if he gets back to that, $6 million is a little expensive for what amounts to a fifth starter type production. Yeah.
And there were other old guys available. I'm not sure he was the best one to target, but the other thing that's hard when we're looking retroactively is these, as I mentioned when I was talking to Randy earlier. But the other one is timing. We never know who you had bids on and who you missed out. It's just too tough. There's no way I'm going to ever dig deep enough to know those things.
Right.
He also signed Mark Little for $2.4 million. Mark Little's a really good loogie, so even though it's kind of a high price for a loogie, I'm okay with that. That's not bad. I don't know why he was on Ricardo Guzman at the same time he was on Cisco Guerrero, because I don't know where Guzman's going to play. Seems odd. But that's like $3.1 million. That's probably just down the drain because he's already got a DH, and I don't know. Maybe he trades one of those guys later. Who knows? But I don't know. It just seemed kind of like a spinning the wheels kind of free agency for Brooklyn, where, like you mentioned, they were kind of a 60 to 70 win team, and maybe they're a little better, but yeah, it's hard to get real excited. I guess Atlantic City's next.
Sure. Yeah, they had an interesting one.
Yeah. You want it?
This is the first one I'll go from critical to mean, probably.
Oh, it's okay. As I always tell, and you know this too. Like, we are just wrong sometimes, often, but it's no fun if we don't have opinions, and stronger opinions are even more fun. But yeah, things work out. So what are you tremendously critical
of? So just to start off, so they won 80 last year, 81 the year before. So they kind of they seem like they're the team that's kind of like, bridesmaid, not the bride, but right there, Mm-hmm. So something like free agency is a great time for them to take that next step, right? But Pablo Figueroa and Juan Jose Elizondo are not that next step. They're probably a step backwards, to be honest. I'm not sure either of them are going to be productive major leaguers this year. So in Figueroa's defense, he lumped to control. Before he lumped that to control, he was, a fine pitcher. So I don't know when the signing occurred relative to the lumping. So maybe that was just a bad luck.
I think the signing occurred after the lumping. I wonder if he missed that he didn't play in 2034.
Oh, I missed that in my research.
Yeah, he was out. I did too. I did initially, and I came back when I was looking through this. But he was out all of last year with an injury, I believe, is why he's not on Vancouver anymore. So I kind of wonder if this was I looked at the stats, saw when the lump occurred, and thought he pitched well despite the lumping, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, before the lumping, he was posting, mid-2 WAR like clockwork. So, yeah, $2.5 million on a 1-year deal is like, a given. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be productive this year. And the second year for $6.5 million is a vest. So the sooner Atlantic City learns that and punts him to AAA, the better, so that he doesn't hit that vest. That's how I feel about that.
I might be slightly more optimistic than you on Juan Jose Elizondo. I agree that he's not somebody that you want to get because you need him to help you. Mm-hmm. But I think he's random enough that he could. You just don't know if he will. And that's not the kind of guy that I would like to spend my money on. He didn't spend a ton of money on him.
I mean, been enough. And he's there for 4 years before his 5th year team option.
Well, he might opt out after the first 2, but...
Well, doesn't the player have to opt out, too?
No, he's got a player opt out. You just wonder if...
Oh,
with,
yeah.
$5 million, $5.5 million, and $3.5 million, if he's any good, he'll opt out. He's
not going to be any good. He's not going to opt out.
Well,
he's got $8.5 million waiting for him in the 4th year. You think he's going to leave that on the table?
He could. Well, but look at it this way, right? And let's skip ERA because you're more of an advanced stat guy like me. He has been, for his career, he has a 103 FIP minus. He's a league average pitcher somehow, miraculously. Somehow he's a league average pitcher, or just worse than with an amazing year last year.
Yeah, so he clearly had a career year last year, which skewed everything. Let me throw his WAR numbers out. He has a career 1.4 WAR in over 900 innings pitched as a major leaguer. Last season, he posted a 1.6 WAR in 134. So before last year, he was a career negative WAR pitcher in almost 800 innings pitched.
But what if you don't believe in pitcher WAR?
Pitcher WAR is just based on FIP.
Yeah, that's why I don't like it. I don't totally disbelieve in it. I just think it's not as I don't know. I like to bypass pitcher WAR and go straight to FIP. I don't need pitcher WAR. I'm perfectly happy just looking at FIP. And his FIP's very mediocre. So,
yeah, I think last season's skewing that, and he's going to repeat that.
No, he probably won't. I'm just trying to needle you a little bit. And then I hope
he's got good movement. I should love him, right?
Right. Yeah. You were talking. There was that debate you were having. Not debate, but we were talking about extreme pitchers, like guys with 10 and 2 categories and 1 in the other. And we know what the one with 1 control is. That's Juan Jose Elizondo. Although the movement could be a little bit better, but he's a pretty good example of what that looks like. The one we thought we wouldn't see, we talked about a guy with 10 stuff and 2 movement and 10 control, and he must have lumped. But when I was looking at stuff earlier, somebody had that guy in their farm system, and I was really excited to see what that would look like.
Yeah,
there was a guy with 11 stuff and 10 control and 2 movement. That was a starter, and it was just that was going to be fun to watch. Just tons of strike, would he have more? Would he walk more guys or have more home runs allowed?
That's a different league, so everything changes. But in the Gooba, they're on a 120 system. I had a prospect who was a 27-18, I think. So I hated him. He was a starting pitcher.
That's pretty. That's pretty.
I had him on the block forever. I finally got someone to trade me like 2 first-round picks, I think, for him, because they have draft pick trading there. And the whole league was, just needling the guy. They thought I heisted him. The very first year he pitched, he won Pitcher of the Year. And I think he went on to win like 3 more in his career. So you think that would have like opened my eyes to the possibility. I still would never want a pitcher like that on my team personally. But clearly you can win.
Yeah, but I agree. Like losing by the home runs is just a crap way to lose. It's the most, if it happens, it's guaranteed runs. It's you can get away with the other stuff. I don't like low emotion guys either. So, what do you think? John Woods they also signed. I hope they don't plan on starting John Woods because he can't start. He can kind of relieve sometimes, but he can't start. So I hope they don't plan on doing that. Sergio Cordova.
Why do you say he can't start? Just curious.
Because he hasn't been able to do it before. He did on way back in 10 years ago. He started a couple times. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think he can start. I just don't. I mean, he had a couple good ERAs 10 years ago, but going back to your pitcher war reference, his career total is 1.8, and in those years he was starting, it actually looks like it might be negative. And then if you
he only had 1 season where he fully started in 2027. Every other year was either full bullpen or like a spot start here or there. And in 2027, he posted a 4.76 FIP and 1.1 WAR. So different. I mean, that's a different era. 8 years ago. So who knows how things have changed relative to what's acceptable from a starter, but. You just got done telling me the 13.71 is going to have a good year. And now you don't like 10.65. I just don't understand. They're both left-handed.
Look, I like to be wildly inconsistent. Don't throw logic at me.
I get where you're coming from. I mean, 3 stamina.
He also has 3 stamina. Yeah. I think the other thing, too, is that, 10 stuff, unfortunately, I don't know what's gone. The ratings have gotten wonky. Strikeout... stuff ratings in this league have gone through the roof. 10's not what it used to be. 10's not that great anymore. We've got multiple starters with 11s and 12s and a couple of 13s, and I think when you hit that real far end of the bell curve and you start getting the 12, 13, you just strike out so many guys that it can make up for glaring deficiencies. And I don't know if you can do that with 10 stuff. So I think that's part of it, is that it's just not enough better than your deficiencies to work. Not that I think Elizondo will work. I think he has a better chance than Woods. I think they're both low.
I think if you if you cap Woods at 50, 60 pitches, just let him go through 4 innings a game, twice through the lineup kind of thing. I think he would have better stats than Elizondo.
That's possible.
For sure.
That's possible.
Now the question is, do you want someone in your rotation that's doing that to your bullpen? But
right. Well, we do have the roster space for it. Atlantic City doesn't have the bullpen to do that, but if you did, you could construct a roster in this league that would work for. I think we've hashed out Atlantic City. We both thought this was kind of maybe they could have made a splash in this free agency enough to make an impact, but they didn't have a whole lot of cap space. I think they had maybe around $10 $12 million to spend, and they didn't really get the players they needed to do it, I don't think. But what do we know?
I mean, just as a hypothetical, so they took 2 left-handed starters, right? Clearly that's something they wanted to do. We'll talk about these 2 guys later when we get to Jacksonville, but they signed 2 left-handed starters for $8 million per, Cavazos and Gonzalez. So, you know, if you direct the funds you gave to these 3 guys who probably like aren't going to give you a good season, and just signed one of those other guys, I mean, that's 3-4 wins probably.
Yeah,
now you're talking about a wild card.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm completely with you, and I think that's one of the. There's another team later on that I think we'll talk about that I think did the same sort of thing where sometimes you just spreading your money around is not the best idea necessarily. You know, it works for some in some situations, but not one like these where they were, like you said, they needed a 5-win player or a 4-win player to really push themselves forward. I guess Charm City is next. I don't. Was Brandon Slock in the league when you left? Did we expand?
Yeah, we did. I remember.
Okay. I did not think Charm City was going to win 105, 106 games last year. I thought they were going to miss the playoffs. I didn't think they had the pitching to carry their offense, which is quite good, but I just didn't think they had the pitching to pull it off, and I was wrong. So, I still think they need pitching this year, and I think they had, some money. I don't know what their cash situation was like, but they certainly had the budget space to add something, and they didn't sign anyone. And you were just talking about, their division rival, or their former division rival, Jacksonville, just added a couple starters, and it seems odd. I don't know. I just think it's not the greatest free agency.
Yeah, I mean, well, after you win, it's not like they came out of nowhere. They won 90 in 2033. So, yeah, 106 is a pretty big leap from there. But even if you assume that was, I haven't looked into this at all, so let me preface it with that. But even if you think that they got a little bit lucky there or something, they were really a 95 wins, or some, hypothetical. I didn't look into it. It's not, you're not feeling a lot of pressure to go, bust your future cap space at that point, right? The playoffs
I suppose.
Anyway, so you're going to be there anyway.
The other thing I don't know is what they look like next year. Like, with young kids they got to pay, do they not want to take on because if you're going to get a pitcher out of this, which I think is what they needed, you're going to have to pay for multiple years, and maybe even though they have cap space this year, maybe they don't in the future. So,
yeah. Just looking at their stuff, they're at 91 next year, and all they're losing is Salazar. So, no kids coming up for extension next year. So, maybe that wasn't as big a concern as hypothetically saying it might have been. I'm not as down on their pitching though as you. I mean, Boehner is as good as a 1 as most teams in the list have. And the other guys kind of fit, my profile of guys I like, having, good movement and not caring as much about stuff and trying to be better in control and movement.
Well, they've only got 4, though, right? They still need a starter from somewhere.
That's true, yeah. Just flipping through the 3 guys. So you got Reyes, 3.7 more and 2 last year. Nales was 2.4 and 3.4 the last 2 years, and Espinoza was 2.2 last year. So I mean, that's perfectly fine for a 3 through 5. Maybe you're right; they could use it too. But was 1 available this year?
I feel like there were a handful of guys. You had they're all old. I mean, that's the thing is, did you want to tie yourself into an old guy? But like Mario Gonzalez was out there. Mario Mendez, who was in Jacksonville, is out there. Here's a spot where, you go with a guy like maybe Chandler to just fill a rotation out. You went somewhere we weren't so excited about him. We'll run into some other players later on. There was somebody, I already forgot, I just recorded the podcast talking about it, but Calgary picked up like a 30-year-old, like a 25-year-old 8.66 starter for $1 million. That was a pretty solid signing. I feel like that could fit in here okay. So I think there were guys, they weren't bad. That, And none of those guys got $10 million. I think at the most any of them got was like 10 or 11, but a lot of them got like $6, $7, $8 million. So there were pitchers to be had. But Brandon made me look like a dumbass last year when I predicted that he wouldn't make the playoffs. So what do I know? Let's talk about New Orleans.
Well, before we jump off Charm City, it wasn't a free agent signing, but I was curious what your thoughts on the Winston extension was. So he's signed until he's 38, and he's making 31, 31, 24 and a half, 24 and a half, 18, 18. So, average annual value of what, 25-ish a year for 6 years?
I don't like it. That's my first. I mean, I have vastly underrated, or just not paid enough attention, probably because he's never been in my league, how good of a player he's been, especially these last 3 years. He's just been completely incredible. Third base is especially weak, I feel, in the league right now, so there's that as an added bonus. He is still, though, that is a long, expensive deal. And I've done a couple, I've talked to Brandon a decent amount to call a podcast with him, and I didn't peg him as the guy to, like, I mean, if you're somebody who just loves your players, who's like, this is my franchise guy, I'm going to keep him around because that entertains me and I have a good time with that, and that makes a difference. Like, I'm going to play Ricardo Diaz until he dies or retires. I don't care how bad he is, because that's what I want to do, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't think that Slock was that. I thought he was kind of more of the mercenary. I move them when they're old. So it's curious. I don't quite understand why he would do it. Now, he's survived $30 million a year for Salazar for half a decade now. So maybe he just thinks that he can do fine with that. But yeah, I don't get it. I think it's potentially disastrous. I think you could have let him go to free agency. If you're going to pay him that money, you could have let him go to free agency and signed him for less.
Yeah, you pretty much sum up my opinion. I mean, it's tough to argue with 4 straight seasons of over a 1 OPS. But I look at him and I don't know how he did that, right? Like, he's obviously a good offensive player. I mean, he's got 11 power versus right-handed pitching. I would love him. But he's not like Cricket in his prime or something, rating-wise. I would have pegged his ratings as like an 850 to 900 OPS. Like, extremely good, but not astronomically good, right?
I would have him more in the 9 to 950. I don't know about the 1.1 stuff he's pulling off, but I think he might be a little low on him just because that. And how close is that? Maybe that's almost a 12 power. I mean, he's got a 9i. Like, he just. I think he might be a little low, but yeah, maybe you're probably right that he does seem to be overachieving a little bit.
But it's tough to argue with 4 straight years of it on the other. So,
yeah, right.
Willing to take the L there, but he's also 32, right?
Yeah.
He's going to be 38 when this is over.
Yeah, it's the length, right? It's not even the 30 millions I care about in 2036 and 2037. It's the money. Maybe he opts out, but like if he doesn't, it's the 18 million when he's 38 years old, and even the 25 million when he's 36 years old. Like, it's just those are franchise killers, right? If that doesn't work out,
yeah, quarter of your, salary cap. That's a lot.
Well, it's more than that, right? I think that's the thing that people tend to forget. Well, we have a 27-man roster, so 13 million of your salary cap is gone because of the 500K for the roster slots. Was the minimums of the guys that are going to be up there. So, like, it's a third. It's a third of your salary cap space.
Yeah, good point. That's true.
So I think it's that's another while we're talking about salary cap stuff. One of the things I constantly harp on when we do these is not expansion teams, but rebuilding teams that have all this young talent that don't ever sign any players to like build up a fan base and start to win a few games to build up revenue. Because if you're going to tell me that you have 6 first-round draft picks who are all really amazing, and you're going to beat Las Vegas or New Orleans or Montreal with a $75 to $80 million payroll, I'm going to laugh in your face. You can't do it. Like, you just can't. I'm not saying you can't, but it's really unlikely. And so, because, again, if you're a $75 million payroll, you actually have a $60 million, $62, $63 million payroll once you take into account the dead money for roster spots, which means you're paying. They have twice as much, they have twice as much money they're using as you. It's so non-competitive a strategy that I wish people would stop doing it. It's better when the teams are good, and we're all good. At least, I don't know. That's what I tell myself. Honestly, I wish all the teams in my division were terrible, and I just destroyed them every year. But that's probably greedy. Well, let's move to New Orleans now, or we're never going to finish.
Sounds good.
As much as I'm enjoying this, I figure you probably want to sleep sometime.
I'm a night owl. I'm good. What time zone?
What?
What time zone are you on?
Oh, I'm in Central, so
okay.
This is fine. But I get a little daunted as I complained about this in the other one, so everybody can listen to it again. I've started a thing since you left that I do free agent reviews for each league, and then I do trade reviews for the off season, and then I write I write one of the league previews for the media guide. So around this time of year, I'm so sick of this. But, it's fun. I love doing it, but it just becomes a giant slog. New Orleans didn't really do too much. I don't think they needed to do too much, right? I think they won somewhere. You're better at this. Look at the numbers than me, but I know they won 80, 85 to 90 wins the last couple of years. And Jim's good, and he has good pitchers all over the place and good hitters all over the place. And I didn't think he needed much. He needed, those players up the middle we were talking about that weren't in this free agency. So he signed a former Phantom, right? He signed Miranda.
I have a note next to him that he's my steal of the free agency. I'm so pissed off that he's not on my team. 1 year, $4.5 million for a catcher who flirts with 2 WAR a season, left-handed. Yeah, that's a great skill.
Yep, I agree. And this is where you're feeling your feet back into the league. I don't know why though, unless he just used him as a platoon, because he's got I don't know how to say Shin Mei, who is a 4-win catcher. So,
oh man, he's gonna use him as a backup.
It's kind of he'll be a great backup, tremendously good backup. But yeah, that's a little odd. But maybe he's just, again, he has money to burn. He has $20 million he's not spending, which again, he's another guy that I don't think necessarily had to spend the money. And maybe he just said, "This is how I get a little bit better, squeeze out a win or two." So, but yeah, you got this guy back. How did you get him out? Was he a trade, or did you get him out of free agency when he was 21 years old?
Oh man, that's so long ago. Let me check his profile.
Oh, No, Jacksonville traded him to you.
Yeah, I traded a pile of shit for him.
Yeah, for nothing. Yeah, I bet Tyler regrets that one. Yeah, because Miranda was he was a 4 to 5 win guy for you.
Yeah, to be fair, he definitely bumped power after I got him. I think he also might have bumped contact.
Well, still, it's always nice when that works out like that. Someday I'll do that. Maybe. And Jim also signed Claudio Chavez, who, 2.7 for a few years. Could be a decent right-handed half of a platoon. Does he have a left-handed third baseman? If he does, this isn't bad. If he doesn't, why did he do this? He does not.
Yeah, if he's going to be a starter, that's going to be tough because his career 703 OPS is pretty much predicated on being a platoon option his whole career. if you go down the list, it's like 200 at-bats every season. So
what he does have is a couple not great third base options. So maybe he's just going, well, at least against left-handed pitching, I'll have a decent player there. That's not a terrible plan. Speaking of Jacksonville, you were talking about the pitchers they signed earlier.
yeah, I mean, I'm in love with both of these signings. I was looking at both of them for my team and decided to forego it. But Cavazos is a former Phantom, so I have that attachment. He posted a 3.9 FIP in 33 and 4 FIP in 34. So, even though he's older, he's still keeping it together. He did lose one stuff and one movement. So, I think 2 seasons ago. But he still got good ratings, making him $8 million a year for 2 years. It seems like good value. And Gonzalez, same deal, $8 million a year for 2 years, and that $6 million team option. He'll be 39 that season. So, if he follows a realistic aging curve, he won't be picking up that option. But he, again, 4 FIP in 33. 4.4 last year. That's a little down. He lost 2 stuff, the off season before last season, I think. So he's in the decline in his aging seasons. But for right this second, both those guys look like they're going to be good next year and worth the contract.
I agree. I'm a little more worried about Mario Gonzalez, and what I wonder, and like I said, you never know with timing, but if he could just have his own player, Mario Mendez back, who I think got a similar deal, I would imagine that Jacksonville would probably prefer that. As far as Cavazos, why do you think he's been so bad? Like ERA, why is he underperforming like his peripheral stats so badly the last few years? Because the walk rate hasn't really skyrocketed. He's not allowing too many home runs. His FIPS have gone up a little bit, but not horribly. And I mean, it sounds like you're just painting a picture of, well, there were bad defenses or homer-prone parks, but it seems to be a little bit worse than that, right? Like he's really just gotten knocked around.
Well, last season he was really just jerked around. He was on 4 different teams. So, and in a couple of them, he didn't even, like Louisville, he put him in the pen for a while. So, that's got to mess with his psyche a little bit. I know Marcus keeps trying to make this more of a Sims experience than a baseball experience. I can't imagine that, the AI was happy there. But he also had a 3, in Huntsville, he had a 3.39 BABIP. In Vancouver, he had a 4.19. Omaha, he had 3.38. And Louisville, he had a 3.39. So, he was definitely getting the short end of the stick defensively in all 4 locales. Luckily, Vancouver was a short stay with that 4.19 BABIP. Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about it. Actually, that's exactly the type of player I would target in free agency, because I would expect people to question that
and a rebound
and not to worry about it.
Yep. Well, that's fair. I just kind of wanted to pick your brain about it since he used to be your guy. Nashville. You guys are just gonna beat the pants off Nashville next year. Like, dude, you guys have 4 legitimately. I don't think your team is as good as the other one, but you have 4 playoff contenders and Nashville.
Yeah,
just gonna get rocked. And they're not even as bad as they were a few years ago, but they're still bad. I don't know. We can kind of, unless you have super exciting things to say about Roberto Miranda, who I think is a kind of a right-handed platoon option at this point, and Randall Thomas, who is kind of a meh signing. The only real one here that matters is Atsumori Maeda.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting flip candidate. He's posted pretty good 2.8 and 2.7 WAR the last 2 seasons, respectively. with how bad Nashville is going to be, I don't think he is going to finish the year with them. Of course, that's a tough contract to sell too. So, do they let you do salary retention in this league?
I can't. We can now, right? Like, is this the first year OTP's had that built in?
18 has it. I just don't know if
the
league role for it.
Okay. Some people have talked like we're going to do it, and I haven't officially heard anything from Rect. I'm of mixed thoughts about it. I understand the desire for it for facilitation of trades and more realism. The one thing I think that we do a fair job of in this league is it's really hard to damage a franchise too badly. And I'm fearful of things like salary retention and draft pick trading to where someone could just destroy a franchise, just completely obliterate them and leave. So I don't know if I want to do it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and we certainly have a predatory environment in our trade market, which would exacerbate those concerns. But yeah, I was just asking if we had it, because if we have it, you would need to retain some of the salary to get anything decent for him, I think.
Yeah, especially with that being a player option next year. I mean, it basically means that either this is going to be a rental or it's a huge risk on somebody sticking around who's not any good.
I wouldn't even assume. I would have 0% doubt that he doesn't.
So yeah, that's not a good. While we're talking about these, what are your thoughts about player options in general?
How so?
I just don't like them. I don't think you should ever put them in contracts.
Yeah.
Bad.
I don't personally ever give my guys player options. No. I mean, it's such a shitty position. You're either paying a guy so if he takes the player option, it probably means he declined and he's not worth it anymore.
Right.
If he declines the player option, there's no forewarning. Like it's not real life where like a month before he declines it, he tells you he's going to decline it for X reasons, and then you can negotiate with him before. Like there's no conversation. It's just one day he doesn't accept it and he's a free agent and you're fucked, right?
Right. Yeah. That's my thoughts on it. They're only bad in this league.
Yeah.
They're only bad. And if a player asks for one, and that's the make or break factor, I just don't want them on my team. I just don't. I'd rather pay more money than have that kind of uncertainty or potential risk. I just think they're bad.
Yeah, the few times a player has wanted one from me in initial demands, I just split that year to a non-option and just make it guaranteed, and they're usually good with that. And from my standpoint, like I said, if they weren't going to be worth it at the end, they weren't going to decline it anyway. So who cares if it's guaranteed or option, if it's in there?
Well, those are pretty much my thoughts on the subject as well. Louisville really quick.
Sure.
They signed one player. Louisville they've been good. They've had an ownership change. Went from Stu to Nigel. I think the team's solid. They didn't need a lot of stuff. They did need an outfielder because they lost one, and they signed one.
Mm-hmm. They certainly did. There is an outfielder that they signed.
Right.
Yeah, he's a fine player. He's a good player. He's a career 7.9 OPS player.
He's got some versatility. He can play some third base a little bit if you're in a pinch.
Mm-hmm. And he was good He was good in defense last year too. 7.2 or 7 flat ZR in left field. So that's a good player. I would be happy to have him on my team
for $8 to $10 million.
$10 million. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. we were talking about Winston potentially hosing you. Can you imagine paying a quarter of your payroll to a player who's like on a good team, hopefully your fifth or sixth best player?
Yeah. Well, and the worst thing about this is there are a lot of good players on this team. And if he doesn't opt out, actually, screw that. Sean McGuire, Shag Hopkins, George Lee Anderson V, Clough's 41, but whatever. Those guys all got to get paid next year.
They have that pitcher Vasquez, too. They have 7 pending free agents, 4 of whom are good players, like will demand more than $10 million. And they already have 62.6 on the books for next year.
Which isn't horrible. It's not the worst spot to be in. But
I mean, that's a low number, but there's 4 players that are going to demand $10 million at a minimum.
Right.
McGuire, Hopkins, Anderson, and Vasquez. So you're already like baseline to $102 million if you resign.
Is Kirschbaum's 2.5 wins worth that? And I think we both agree on the answer.
Yeah, I mean, what if he costs you Anderson the fifth? What if you can't resign him because McGuire and Hopkins want $15 million, and you have other holes you think you're going to want to fill in free agency? So now not only, so now you're not just looking at, was Kirschbaum worth his contract by himself? You also have to consider the opportunity cost of the negative value he brought by causing you to lose a player.
Right. No, I'm completely with you on this. On the other hand, apparently, his teammates say they don't know a lot about him, is what the Sims portion of the game
what?
is telling me about. Yeah, these personality things, I don't know if you don't read these just out of spite because you don't like it so much that it's huge, but they've gotten ridiculous. Like, they've just, I don't even know what they're supposed to be anymore. What is that? What am I supposed to take away from that? His teammates say they don't know a lot about him. Well, thanks. That's, what does that mean? What does that tell me about the guy? Great. How is that different from he's introverted? Which
looks
I
like
have
he's born in Norway, but he has a German nationality. I have a lot of questions here. I don't know much about him.
Oh my god, yeah. That's, I don't know. Actually, is that, whatever. It took me like a decade of OTP to learn that his personality is introverted is bad. That's what I've learned. I think that leads to lumping.
Really?
I don't know. I've had like 5 guys with that lump. Maybe it's just guys lump all the time, and half of them do, and I was just unlucky. Doesn't seem to be good. Could just be confirmation bias, though. Okay, well, we beat up Nigel enough. Let's talk about your fantastic franchise.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about you, or do you want me to talk about you?
I'd rather you talk about me.
Yeah, I figured you'd say that. You did great. I think you... I think, let me see if I wrote this down. Yeah, I think you had the best free agency. I don't think it's close.
Okay.
At least in your league. The one I don't quite understand is the Barney Everhart signing.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Because while he's got some potential as a hitter, especially with you, I mean, where are you gonna? Is he like a first base platoon for you? Because he's got 4 range. So
yeah, he's gonna be a first. He's got DH.
Okay. Well, that makes a little more sense.
I was looking at some other right-handed DHs, and they were better. Like, there were guys with maybe like 1 con better that maybe, like, if I was min-maxing, I should have went for. But the fact that he could play first base and maybe third base, I was like, maybe that's worth like 40 less OPS in 100 at-bats. I don't know. He's not somebody I'm like hanging out.
Okay. Well, that makes
a lot of money to burn.
So, I think I like I like this. I like the Sam Adams signing. I don't know that he's a full-time player, and I don't know that your other catcher's a full-time player. But Sam Adams, at least against the pitchers that he's supposed to hit well, is going to hit home runs, and he's going to throw guys out. And we have a lot of high-speed guys right now, so I like that.
That was something I was really, I did that piece last year about how just fucking absurd our stolen base rate is in the league right now. And I know Matt said he was going to do something with it. I don't know if he did. Maybe he did. But if he didn't, both of my catchers have a 10 arm, and that was very, very important to me.
So, Chip Saunders, who some people, defensive catchers are not a big thing for some people, and he's one of the best ones in the league and possibly ever. He's got like a 10 arm, maybe 11, I don't know, one of those. Versus a team that had a catcher with like a 5 or 6 arm, my stolen base attempts against were half.
Wow.
It's a big deal. Like, it's something important. So he's been a swirly hitter where sometimes he just hasn't hit very well, but he's always hit home runs, and that's at least in a platoon role he'll be fine. You wonder about Leon Sandcastle's ability to play center field anymore, but he's done okay. So he's not been horrible. Are you going to play him in? Are you going to play him in center, or are you going to put him in the right?
He's going to be center right now. I have Tim Torres keeps bumping, but he does not have positional experience, so he's going to go back to AAA to post like a 2.8 OPS while he learns some outfield position.
I think your outfield defense will be a little bit weak, but for what you had, for the fact that in terms of a bang for your buck, there's a great player out there. $16 million isn't a terrible amount for Sandcastle. He's still a great hitter. He pays for himself a little bit with his fan interest bump. I just think that's a great signing. Adam Parrish is another just, solid player, good defender in the corners. We don't see too many of those anymore. He's a legitimate switch hitter. He's a little bit worse against lefties, but he's not, one of those guys that's so bad against them. He's bad.
Of all the guys I picked up, I was really floored when he signed with me. Because 4 years at $4 million per is, I feel like that should have been insulting for a guy who
right, for a starter, for a guy that's I agree. That's a pretty good deal. The other one, I think you got a great deal on, even though he's not a great pitcher anymore, is Anastasio Quintana. He is by no means the pitcher he used to be, but he's probably still a reasonable either bullpen option or number 5, and that's $2 million for that is good. There's really not a whole lot else to say about that. So
I was seriously considering a relief commercial on him. I think he would have ended up like a 10.66 reliever.
Yeah, that could have worked out really well. He's got a fastball. He's in that range where moving up 2 miles an hour is probably a big difference. He's got a bunch of other pitches, and he'd be fastball sinker, which isn't
my thing.
Yeah, was it fastball sinker that's your thing, or just sinker?
If I can build my pitcher from scratch, it'd be sinker cutter.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Cutters are great.
Yeah,
at least in this game, they're just tremendous. So yeah, I have you as the clear winner of the Jonhson free agency. Now, I think you might have had an easier path to a good free agency too, because when you have holes in money, and that's it's always a little bit easier than when you have no money and you need a shortstop. That's just not a good position to be in.
I worked hard for that money though. I came in and this team had was max payroll with a bunch of shit. So
yeah, no, it was bad.
I was working the phones pretty hard to dump some of that bloat. before free agency.
We got one division left, and then we've gotten through this giant slog. I enjoy doing these. I just feel like they just seem to run forever. Phoenix is next. Phoenix. I thought Phoenix unfortunately needed multiple starting pitchers, just because they got destroyed by Ignacio Rodriguez's lumping, and they did not get those guys.
They didn't get anything, did they?
They didn't what?
They didn't really get anything, did they?
No, they got a couple relievers that don't matter.
They're going to run out of 71 million payroll, so it's like, they won 82 games last year. Why do you not try to do something?
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing I'm not clear about is that budget's a bit high, like a $95 million budget. That would give them $20 million in space. They've not had that kind of cash. So either Marco spent some points to get that budget, or doesn't have the cash, or their owner did something goofy. They might not have the money to have added stuff. It's possible. But the other thing is, I played in the old GBC with Sean. He never really prioritized starting pitching. He was I will beat you to death with 1,000 home runs guy.
It's a good strategy.
It does work.
I mean, you remember those Seattle teams, right? Like, there were 100-win teams every year with, quadruple A starters in their number one slot. So.
Right. And it does work. I think that, they've got 6 or 7 starters with 9 or better power.
Yeah, their lineup's crazy. But even if you don't care about starting pitching, there's so much low-hanging fruit there. It's right. Trujillo and just shit. All right, Corrigan. So it's Trujillo, Corrigan, and shit.
Right.
You could have spent $2.5 million and gotten a guy who's going to be so much better than Ernest Schaefer or Rob Snyder.
That's where I am too. Well, does you got anyone coming up that we're missing? I think I looked at this and the answer is no, but I will look again.
It doesn't look like anyone immediate.
Yeah. So, no, I agree. This was and that's a division where he could have made some hay too, because it's Las Vegas and a bunch of alsos. I'm not super high on San Antonio or Wichita this year. Mexico City, I think, has a talented base, but Phoenix could have pushed themselves into prime wildcard contention.
Yeah,
and
it's a shame
they did not. Speaking of Mexico City, they don't really have a whole ton of needs, right? They need some better bats. I think they're a little. But I always say this about Fred Holmes' teams, right? And you remember dueling it out with them when they were just a bunch of slap hitters, and he just kept winning that way. So maybe he'll do fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've seen a lot of comments on the forum that they're going to be really good. I don't know.
Their pitching's good, right? And they've got. Well, you wouldn't be happy because the motions are all 6, but they're good. They're not like cruddy 6 motions.
Yeah, fine. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe it's just the lineup's very high contact, no power, no eye. So that's just not my thing. So maybe.
No, it's hard for me to get excited about too. Although they've got some decent players. They really needed to find a third baseman, I think, this year, which just wasn't, again, unless you got Mark Dempsey, wasn't really an option. And they needed maybe some impact power hitters, but those really weren't there either. So I can't fault them too much for not doing a ton in this free agency, because this was not an easy place to find good bats in. They brought back Jeffrey Warren, who was okay for them last year and probably will be okay for them this year in the platoon role. But that's about it. They're not real exciting. I think this is the point where I realized that the teams we have left just didn't do much.
This division was quick.
Yeah, the whole division was nothing, right? Wichita, they're an expansion team. I don't know what they signed Andre Wellington for, unless they're going to use him as a right-handed DH/first baseman, which isn't a horrible idea.
You got to figure they're not they don't care about this season, right? You got to assume that.
Right, so, but they don't.
So they're running out of $59.5 million payroll with a $75 million budget. You know, think of all the above average relievers they could have signed with $15 million in cash that they could have then flipped for 2-star batting prospects at the trade deadline.
Or yeah, it's the one of the two things. I don't know, two things. There's themes in these every year. Is you could have signed and flipped somebody. The other one is you could have signed somebody for fan interest just to put. There's always those extremely popular old guys out there that you can pay $2 million once spring training starts, and they pay for themselves plus some. Rebuilding teams need to sign players. It's the same. It's the same things we pick on every year.
Actually, never thought that fan interest thing.
No,
they would themselves. That's a good thought. I
think the number's about right around $2 million. Like you get an extremely popular player for $2 million, and they more than pay for themselves. It's somewhere right around there. Vegas didn't sign anybody because they don't need to. They legitimately did not need to sign a single player, but they also only had like $2 or $3 million in cap space.
They also did have 2 high-profile re-signings though, with Sweet World and Greenwood. I don't know if you had to look at them. So Sweet World's 6 years at $19.7 million per. I think it was a pretty flat, no funky options kind of deal. Clearly he's a great player. I mean, probably the best all-around center fielder in the league. But he's been pretty up and down with his WAR, like 4.371, 3.664. It's kind of how he goes. So, like, $20 million a year is great for, you love that when it's the 7 or the 6 WAR season, but I don't know if you love it in the 4 and 3 WAR season so much.
No, I agree with you. And now we don't have a whole lot of hitting center fielders at the moment that are in their prime. Now there are a ton of young guys, and they're all in Edmonton. There's a couple scattered, like 3 or 4 scattered other places that are going to come into the league. But for now, center field's pretty weak. It's expensive, but he's also only 26 too. This isn't one of those 30-year-olds we're playing.
Right. Yes, it's the it's the Winston deal without the worry about the age. It's just the fact that it's just taken up so much cap.
Right. I do wonder where Recht is going to go, because this team, he's had this same. I mean, this is the core he had when you were here last time, right? Like it's.
I don't remember Sweet World, but maybe he was there.
Sweet World was young. He was there. So, well, he traded for Rechtenberg, who's probably going to be a new part of that core. Who's the? You said he had 2 extensions.
Yeah, Greenwood at 5 years.
Oh, he extended.
$13.3 million. So that one I question more, because like Sweet World, you could argue, okay, like in terms of pure player value, maybe he's not worth that contract. But when you consider center field value and how the dearth of the position makes him, more valuable in that sense, okay, maybe I can do that. But Greenwood, I mean, there's legitimate concerns. Like he's lost 2 stuff, and he was also one of the guys that went from 7 to 6 movement in the switchover. 29 years old. Is he following the what was that?
Mike Swanson? The last time they traded for a big guy? That's the first. That's what I was thinking. I don't know. Now, his control, he went 9 to 8 on movement. That could just be the switch. His control actually bumped back up. But yeah, once you start to get around 6 stuff, on the other hand, $13 million is not bad for a number 2 starter. Even if he turns into lumps a little bit, he's just a number 2, or even a 3. That's not terrible.
Well, I know you don't like pitcher WAR, but it's just a quick encompassing stat to throw out, right? So we went at 3.7, 5.2, 2.9, 4.3. So he kind of had the same thing as Sweet World, where he seems like he's pretty up and down year after year. 2.9, that's not a 3.3 million pitcher.
No, it's not. And he needs to not do that repeatedly. On the other hand, if you want to look at FIP minus the last 3 years, 86, 77, 78. Now, those are tremendous. Well, I'll take those anytime. But yeah, it's a little concerning. I think Vegas will be interesting to watch the next couple of years because they're Rec always can make moves, but they've got some they've now locked themselves into some pricey contracts and they've got some old guys and
Can I show some noobness for a sec? I have no idea where you're pulling fit minus from.
Oh, like where I'm finding it in the thing?
Yeah.
Expanded stats 2.
Oh, you just blew my mind. Okay, thank you. That
It's
actually
nice to have.
factors stadium, like real life?
It's supposed to.
Hmm.
So I don't know how well it does. It seems to, though. If it doesn't do it perfectly, I think it does a pretty good job. Because those are, let's go look at if you want to go to Calgary and look at my perennial, this guy's going to win the Nebraska this year, but he never gets any votes because his park effect in Calgary is so freaking awful. You go look at Cristobal Hernandez, and last year with 4.8 WAR, he was a 66 fit minus. Or no, sorry, that was R WAR, 6.7 WAR. So the WAR is about right. So yeah, I think that almost has to factor in park effect. Maybe not. I'm not sure if it does it correctly or not, but it doesn't seem to be totally wonky out there.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it was in here like 3 or 4 editions ago, was it?
I don't know. I don't deep dive into a lot of stuff. Like, I pretty much just look at pages.
You've probably missed I think about the time you left when I started my annual diatribe on why I don't like war. And I just moved almost exclusively to looking. If I want a one-shot stat, I just look at weighted runs created plus and fit minus. And, do the war calculation, or the calculation of value that you would do instead of war in my head. Because I just think the positional adjustments are wonky and innings pitch throw off. The innings pitch is so much more determined by, how you utilize pitchers than how many innings they can actually pitch. I just don't like it. So we got San Antonio, who signed a lot of players.
The two that stuck out to me were Sanchez and Leonard. Did you see anybody else that was?
No. Not really. Flint Colbert has been bad. He shouldn't be this bad, but he's been bad. And he's a right-hander that's getting crushed by righties. Mario Murillo is $4 million too much for right-handed bench bats. Sebastian Duran could be okay, but he's a little expensive. Jose Gutierrez is giving up 2.5 home runs per 9. So yeah, Dan Leonard and Alvaro Sanchez.
So I'll let you start out.
Well, I want to hear your take on Alvaro Sanchez because I bet we're going to be different.
Okay. Obviously I didn't like what my team was paying him, and I'm happy that he's gone. But I don't think he's terrible.
He's $6 million.
I think $6 million's okay. Maybe not great. I don't know. He's left-handed. It's not a common thing. Posted, hold on. He had a 4 FIP and then a 4.8 in 33 and a 4.85 last year. That's not good. But it's a 1-year deal. Yeah, he's not going. Probably not going to pick up the team up.
It is, and you could do worse if you were looking for you could do worse looking for a fifth starter.
Yeah.
I guess I don't see him as being potentially better than the fifth starter they already have. And when we move on to Dan Leonard, Dan Leonard's an okay bat. If you have power elsewhere in your lineup and you don't need a power hitting first baseman, he's a good, okay first base bat. That's fine. Maybe. I think he's a downgrade from the on-base guy they had last year, which was Jorge Rodriguez. He's probably cheaper. My biggest concern with this whole thing is They spent $32 million on free agents.
Wow.
And came away with basically Alberto Sanchez, Dan Leonard, and kind of scrabble parts.
Yeah, I would throw both of those guys in that same category. They're not needle movers. Dan Leonard's going to post like one WAR next year.
For $32 million, you could have had take your pick of Jacksonville's pitchers, Jose Cavazos or Mario Mendez or Mario Gonzalez and Leon Sandcastle. Or if you want to go the route that San Antonio's got pretty decent pitching, and you don't want to get a pitcher, you could have had Leon Sandcastle and Mark Dempsey. Although they've got Greg Norman, who's an okay third baseman, but their DH is Juan Fernandez, so they could have DH one of them. This is like there was another team we were talking about, I don't remember who now, but where you spend a little money here and a little money there and a little money there and a guy here, and you just end up with like not a whole lot of impact for your dollars.
Right.
And that's, I don't know. Mike has competed with teams in San Antonio that I have never thought could compete. He's done it multiple times, so there's a clear evidence that he's got a strategy that works in a way that I don't understand and don't get, and that's totally fine because I don't know everything. But I don't know, this feels, this is like just this. Now, the other thing about these aren't long deals. None of these are more than a year or two. And he's not really hurting himself. It's kind of I don't know. It's not what I like. So that's what I got about that.
Yeah, he won 72 last year, and these deals might get him to 73. But they're short, so he'll get another chance next year. In free.
And I tend to, not consider things too. Like, I'm beating up one team for not signing a few players to win some games to make money, and maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is I'm going to compete the best I can while I wait for some of my young guys to get better, because he does have young guys. So if that's the case, it's not bad. It's not the most exciting.
Yeah.
So, you have any kind of wrap-up thoughts on this group of free agents? Or how you thought teams did? Or if you had to not talk, you wouldn't pick yourself. I picked you as the winner of free agency out of this group. Who do you think out of the other teams?
Well, to be fair, I didn't look at the frick really at all. So this is just my Johnson League opinion.
No, I was only asking the Johnson League.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't. Overall, I have a lot more negative to say than positive, which I think when we replay this podcast, we'll realize that we're a bunch of assholes. It's tough not to look at what Huntsville did, but that would be really shitty to have them as my own pick. But yeah, nothing else stands out. Jacksonville, obviously, I talked multiple times about the two pitchers they got. So I guess I'll have to go with Jacksonville almost as like a process of elimination, just because I don't think anyone else will put out.
And I think we both liked the contracts that Montreal signed people to. We just couldn't figure out how they were going to play them.
Well, I mean, no, I have legit concerns about Dempsey playing third base.
Oh, you're talking about his range. Because how much value does he lose if he has to move to first base? That's a fair criticism. All right, well, I don't know. I do always wonder if I'm going to keep doing these every year, because we just need better free agent classes, I think, is part of the problem. It's hard to get really excited about these when you're talking about a bunch of old pitchers and relievers, players that are so prone to like getting over-purchased or, getting too much money, because a lot of exciting players out there.
In my experience, where you really, quote unquote, win in free agency is not crippling yourself, like, Louisville with the Kirschbaum or whatever his name was.
Right.
Kirschbaum contract. Like, if you can avoid crippling yourself with long-term stupid money deals, like, so just going after old guys on short contracts, lengths and stuff. And B, like, maybe you don't get stars, but just like nipping around the edges specifically in the bullpen, I mean, I signed like five. I basically like made a bullpen from scratch with 2 million 1 year deal contracts that I'm actually really happy about. So the next time you're looking at like trading your three best prospects for an elite closer that's going to give you 1.5 WAR, and you're going to have to pay $10 million a year for down the line. Just remember that you can get a guy for $2 million on a 1 year deal that's going to give you like half that WAR, and they're available in abundance every single year.
Every year, or there's the failed starter that's like 7.76 with 5 pitches, and you just go pick that guy up and convert him, for pocket change.
Yeah, exactly. They're always there.
So they're always there. I think the other one is platoon options. Like if you've got if you've got a good lefty bat with a bad righty split, you pick up that cheap right-handed bat, or the other way around. It's a little less common, but I think those are some of the good things you can do. You have any other thoughts? Anything else you wanted to comment on?
No, I mean, like I told you, I still haven't like immersed myself completely in the league goings on, so I don't have a lot of hot takes for you. I apologize.
Oh, that's cool. I kind of ambushed you at the last one with that. I'm always just trying to squeeze out more content if I can edit together another podcast out of something.
Yeah, I compete with Ron for that poster of the year.
What was that?
Yeah, I compete with Ron for the
I'm trying. My goal is 450. That's what I'm going to try to get to this year. Because that allows me to build a park. Right. That allows me to build a park for like $30 million, which is all I'm going to be able to have in cash. And I really want a new park. So,
did you not change your dimension?
I did, but like my park's like 40 years old, so my park fees are kind of expensive. And even though I changed my dimensions, like I'm still actually kind of a pretty big pitcher's park. And I don't like wonky dimensions. I know it's boring, but the next park I build will be 1. Everything will be 1.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm tired of like not being able to trade a pitcher or not being able to trade a batter because people look at the stats and don't pay attention to the park effect. And I don't know. And I've had this weird string of the last 4 teams I've gotten in these kind of leagues have all had massive pitchers parks. I'm just sick of it. I don't want to do it anymore. And
it's a weird mental dichotomy for me. Like when I look at a team with a pitcher park, like you or Louisville or Vancouver, like I just straight don't believe your pitcher stats. But I have a ton of sympathy for your batters, and so like I'll try to buy low on them because you probably hate them because they don't perform. But I don't do the same thing with batter parks like me, Las Vegas. I think Calgary's got one. Brooklyn, I think, has one. I don't do that same thing. Like I don't look at their batters and I don't say like, oh well, that's just because they play there. Maybe it's because I have a batter stadium too, so I'm just always like, oh well, of course they're going to be fine in my stadium.
I wonder if it has something to do with the success rate, where baseball's that weird sport where failure's the norm, and like somehow that I don't have a definitive path from A to B there, but I just wonder if that because most people do that. Almost everybody that doesn't take hitters parks into account. Even with pitchers, they don't even look at hitters parks and go, if I take that pitcher, he'll do better in my park. But where with batters parks, I get that thing where nobody believes my pitchers are any good. But also, you're one of the rare guys who will try to buy a batter. They'll look at the guy and go, well, yeah, I know that it's a pitcher's park, but how do I know he'll be any better? And it's like, I think it's something weird about the game of baseball and our just some flawed thing in our what we look for. I don't know. Yeah, but my biggest complaint with pitchers parks is pitchers parks make you more susceptible to randomness. They narrow the margin. If you take a team that would have outscored its opponent by 100 runs and put them in a pitcher's park, they would have outscored them by 80 runs. All you did is just make yourself more susceptible to bat out to randomness. I would rather widen that gap.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's kind of the philosophy in me going with the batter's park is, I I think if it's a high-scoring game, I have a better chance of winning. Maybe that's part of, what you're just talking about with game theory.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little odd. Well, okay, I'm going to edit some of this out so we can actually have it finished. But that concludes our review of the Frick League, or Jonhson League free agency. Who knows what these leagues are anymore? We keep moving teams around. Thanks, Kyle, for being here. Hope everybody had fun listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.